Hi, I'm Simon Rushton and this is Taxi Chronicles podcast. On this podcast, we spontaneously interview unsuspecting passengers with their permission, allowing them to share their intimate life stories and concerns. As our slogan states, real riders, real stories. Some riders prefer to be anonymous, while others ask me to tell their story later on. Either way, there are all genuine 5 to 10 minutes stories, so sit back and enjoy this episode.
Hi, and it's me again, and it's late night, and we're getting into the night. I've been driving probably, hitting 12 hours, and we've got a lovely couple in the car, Kirsty and Tom. They're full of beans. Tom was working for the light, for the teachers, helping people out, and then he transitioned to the dark side to be with his lovely wife, who's working in the dark side on finance too. No, but anyway, on a serious note, we're just going to talk, just let the conversation flow as it does normally. Probably start off talking about teaching and why Tom got into teaching and what motivates him and what demotivated him. And then we will get onto finance, where obviously Kirsty shall jump in and give her side of things, and we'll just see how it goes from there. So, Kirsty, Tom.
Hello.
Okay.
Nice to be here.
Nice to be here. It's great to be here.
Okay, that's good. So what motivated, furthermore, let's start like this. What degree did both of you do?
I did a computer science degree.
Yeah, I did modern languages, so I studied German and Italian.
Okay,
Yeah.
so did you teach, did you go on to teach in German and Italian?
No. I actually I taught primary school, so little nippers. I taught year 6 and then year 5 in a place called Small Heath in Birmingham. So if you are a Peaky Blinders fan, it's the area's changed a wee bit, but it was great. It was a fantastic experience.
Okay, that's interesting. Kirsty, you said you studied
Computer science.
and you ended up in finance.
Yeah, well, I work in like IT and finance, so it's not that far from the realm.
Okay,
But
okay.
I just talk to people all day. It's great.
So how was it teaching people or teaching the little Peaky Blinder kids?
Well,
In-
I think at that age, I think the children aren't. I don't have any horror stories of people chucking chairs across the room, and I don't have those sort of stories of, some of my colleagues who worked with older children might have found that, there were sort of knives and children, they're young adults at that stage making bad decisions. The way I saw my role was being like a social worker. I knew the families, I knew uncles, aunts, in an area where we had 80% of kids on pupil premium, which is a sort of a designation that means your family earn below sort of £20,000 a year.
The whole family?
The whole family. So
Whoa.
it's, so it's a very deprived area. And with that came a great deal of challenges, but also opportunities to, as you can probably hear, I've got a fairly sort of plummy accent, but it was an opportunity to sort of, really kind of share, a different perspective and, hopefully sort of, open people's eyes to something new and something, share with them sort of my experiences.
So because I don't understand about the new school system and how they age, what age were the children?
So I taught ages 10 to 11.
10 to 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they would just be at the end of primary school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Primary school.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long did you do that for?
So I did that for 2 years. So I graduated in 2018 and I did 2 years. Just finished up in July.
Mm-hmm.
So dealt with the whole COVID thing and home learning.
So did you have to do a teacher training?
So I did a program called Teach First, where you basically graduate, you spend 4 weeks rather, sort of learning the basics, and then they pretty much throw you into a classroom. So it's very much sink or swim. And I have to say, like, anyone who, it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Okay.
Jumping into a classroom, you're teaching from 9 to 3, but the hours you put in outside of school, preparing lessons, marking books, just kind of getting ready are, there were some days where you work 14, 15 hour days easily.
I can see why you went to finance.
Yeah, yeah.
The hours are
Just
so
said,
much
because
worth
I'm not
it.
doing that. I don't care. I'm not doing that with my own kids. Let alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely you know, the way that funding's going, and you know, the current government have certainly made it cut budgets a lot. And you know, the way they've basically done is the average teacher, I don't know if you know this, spends 3 years in education. So
is it?
that's 3 years, and then they're out. So they, you know, they've committed. They might have gone to university, did a teaching degree, and then basically turned around and said, no, it's not for me. So there's a lot of systematic problems in terms of the expectations put on people to work incredibly long hours in incredibly stressful environments, and they really care. Teaching is a vocation for people, and then you know they suddenly get kicked in the teeth because there's no, you know, you've got no backing.
You're not getting rewarded.
Yeah, and there's a, you know, there's not just that. It's not even about the money. It's about the fact that, you know, teachers are sort of systematically mistrusted by the sort of system they work for, and frankly, they don't, you know, it's just not enjoyable for a lot of people. You know, you don't have any freedom. You spend your life sort of ticking boxes, and you know, like a lot of things, it's become over-regulated to the point where, you know, it's lost part of what attracts people to do it. It's a, you know, it's a real shame.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting points of view there. So, what was the crunch decision that made you move on?
Well, it kind of got to the stage where I think teaching is fun. The teaching is fantastic, but there is a certain point that you reach where you think, you know, do I want to do a career that's maybe kind of more opportunities to travel, work, you know, in a sort of in a fast-paced environment? I think, you know, finance offers that. So I was definitely attracted to, you know, the idea of being able to sort of really test myself, you know, against, you know, maybe in a sort of more confrontational way. You know, fragile male ego in me wanted to sort of, you know,
fragile male ego.
You know, wanted to see how I would get on in the, you know, in the city. So kind of went that way. And you know, it may not be forever. I'm a qualified teacher now. I can always go back if I need to.
But you could teach virtually.
Yeah, exactly.
I did an episode with somebody, and that's all she does. She teaches virtually to Chinese and Russian students.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the great things that's come out of one of the few good things that's come out of the pandemic is that people have realised that, you know, a lot of, you know, if you think of your parents' classroom and our classroom, you know, I'm 24, and the classrooms of today, they look pretty much the same. You know, I think education could do with a real sort of, lot of it, you know, there's a lot of space for innovation and technology to come in and, like, you know, really help bridge those gaps that might exist, you know, certainly between state and secondary schools. So, you know, state and private schools. So I think, you know, hopefully, you know, our school really embraced technology, and it really gave us an opportunity to, you know, get into, you know, make sure that people didn't fall as far behind as they would otherwise. So I'm intrigued to see where, you know, how that particular sort of strand develops.
Did you always want to be a teacher when you were younger, or was it something else?
Do you know, it's funny, I've always have wanted to be a teacher, but I never, you know, I think teaching is strange, because I think most people think that, you know, I said to my mum the other day, like 60% of when I was a teacher, I said 60% of my job I love, you know, 30% of my job I could probably do without, and 10% of my job I really hate. And she, you know, she looked at me dumbfounded, and she said to me, "You lucky son of a bitch." Like, you know, like, well, she didn't say that, obviously. Sorry, I've had a beer. But she basically said, like, you know, you lucky so-and-so. Like, everyone, how much would people love to like their job that much? So
what's your ratio now?
It's probably less than that. No, I think the highs are less high, and it's a bit more consistent. You know.
You know what? That's very interesting, because I would say probably 70, maybe even 75. What I do now,
yeah,
I like.
Do you?
Because I'm never with someone for more than an hour.
That's cool.
Unless it's a drug dealer, because they jump in and they want to be taken everywhere. But generally, you're meeting, because I interview people.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you're hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything's new. No one's story is the same.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
That's true.
So I never really thought of that. It's an interesting thing. What percentage of job do you love, hate, and
Well,
it's just as okay?
I mean, I think talking of people's stories, Kirsty's is probably more interesting than mine. But I do feel sorry for people when you go into like a shop, say, and it's a Friday afternoon, and you're, buying, some cans or dinner or whatever, and they say to you, "Oh, thank God it's Friday," like with real glee in their eyes. And I think, like, obviously, you shouldn't live to work, but I definitely don't find. I'd hate to think that I find myself counting down the days to Friday evening, like like there's nothing, that's the only thing getting me through. I mean, I guess, but I suppose that's that old, work to live, don't live to work sort of thing. But anyway, enough about me. I'm going on about too much. Talk to Kirsty. She's far more interesting.
The lady of the hour.
Hello.
Okay, so Kirsty, did you always want to be in the finance here?
Well, it's where the money is at. So I'm very easily sold. And then it sounded really exciting, different every day, very fast paced, kind of similar to Tom. But then, you get there and it's not that interesting.
I need you to explain what finance is, because as a layman and a person from a working class background, I know it's numbers, and I know you're probably counting other people's money, something like that. But give us a brief layman's version of what you do in finance, either one of you or both of you.
So I work at an investment bank and I work in foreign exchange, but I work on more the IT side. So the trades that are booked by the traders, I kind of support the systems that they use. So I'm very back end. I don't actually handle the money, but I talk to the people that do, so it's all very exciting.
Okay. And
I mean, I do something slightly different. I work in investment management, and I suppose the way that anyone who has like a pension or everyone is affected by finance, and I think that's something that people don't realise, is that if you have, for instance, like a pension, it's probably in a big pension pot. So when I was a teacher, my teacher's pension was basically in this big pot of money that was managed by people called asset managers. And the way you should understand what they do is there are two kinds of people in that world. There are owners of capital, so people who have money, and then there are managers of capital, so people like me. And the idea is that essentially we take that money and we invest it. So when you hear about the stock market and shares and equities and bonds and things like that, basically what we do is we make calculated bets that certain companies are going to do well, and so we give them money and they grow, and then that money we then take a profit. It can also go the other way and they can lose.
Then do you get forfeit when they lose?
Well, so the idea is, we then have to go to the person who's given us their money and say, like, we've lost you money, and we might get fired, or they might say, okay, well, it's for instance during COVID it's been a really rubbish time in the markets. They might understand, but generally speaking, you don't stay in the business too long if you lose. It's a very, it's a bit like teaching in the sense that it's a young man's world. I mean, I look around the office and I do think, unless you're very senior, you don't get many people over the age of 50. Mm-hmm. But it's an interesting point, you make about, it's something that our firm think about a lot, is like, how do you attract people from working class backgrounds or people from, areas that like don't necessarily, haven't had that exposure to it into the business. And I think, it always interests me to sort of hear what people, when people say finance, it's kind of a dirty word.
Yeah, because people think of 2008.
Yeah, and I don't blame them.
And was that your lot?
Well, no, this wasn't my lot, because it was finance, but it was investment bankers. So when people say they hate bankers, what they mean is they hate
me.
They probably hate Kirsty. No, I think it's something that I suppose maybe something I'm interested in doing in the future, or something is merging my interest in financial services with teaching, because it is the world is kind of run, whether we like it or not, banks play a fundamentally important role within the system that we inhabit. They pump money around the system, they literally give companies the capital they need to grow, and yet it's most people don't really have any understanding of how that system works. And I think if you want to change the system, you've got to understand the mechanisms behind how it functions. So I suppose something I'd be interested in doing in the future is kind of supporting, like, kind of the education of from like a financial perspective, and also perhaps
What I'm getting from you, Tom, is a sense of morality that you want to bring in anything you do.
Well, that's really nice of you. I mean, I think part of the reason I like what I do now is that it's a very honest living, in the sense that if you perform well, you're rewarded, and you can be rewarded very handsomely. And if you do badly, then the opposite is true. And in that sense, it's fairly black and white. And it's actually it's an incredible the days of like. It pisses me off to no end when people think of the city as like boozy lunches, people like Nigel Farage in pinstripe suits, sort of braying at each other. The fact is now it's more of a meritocracy than than a lot. Once you're in, of course, like there's systemic issues in terms of getting in and having access to education and people taking a chance on you, of course. But once you're in, if you perform well, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. My CEO, the person I work for, is a woman, and people have the fact is the people who get left by the wayside are the people who write her off because she's a woman. She got where she is by being the best at what she does. So I think in many ways it is an incredibly meritocratic world. Of course, I mean that's I acknowledge that that's a fairly narrow way of seeing it, but I certainly feel like teaching, something like teaching that we perceive as being very like an honourable profession. Trust me, people are just as quick to knife you in teaching as they are in the financial services. I've found actually like people jealously guard things more closely. The less money's involved, the more it's reputation on the line than anything else. I don't know. That's
maybe because that's all they've got.
Well, that's probably you're probably right. Yeah.
Have you considered? Sorry to interrupt. Have you considered teaching finance on like a social media channel?
I mean, so it's actually funny. My mum and I worked together on creating sort of a platform that basically, because when I think a lot of people graduate from university and they don't really know what they want to do. They sort of think they have skills in the sense they did a degree, great, but at no point were they taught how to file a tax return or
not really handle real money.
Right, of course, or in a purely practical sense. And I think there's a real gap in the market there for someone who's willing to who can do it in like a sort of efficient and creative way, and in a way that can be monetized, most importantly. But to really and I suppose technology would come into it, really be able to educate people in a practical sense about not just personal finance, but finance in general. Because, money talks, money rules the world. And the fact is, the less, I think it's really counterproductive when people go, oh, it's the bankers again. If you understanding the system is so important if you want to force change.
Yeah, and if you're not in,
of course.
Think of it. If you're not in that, you don't know.
Yeah.
And then all you see is Boris and his banker mates.
Yeah.
You're going to always say it's the bankers.
Yeah.
And even from the 80s, which is before your time, when they was throwing fake fivers out the window. You lot have had don't say you lot because you seem like two nice people, but the bankers have had a bad, it's not a good rap, not a good reputation.
And rightfully so, of course. But, I think I don't know, I'm a big believer that like having worked in a fairly sort of deprived area, I have a real problem with the phrase systemic racism as an excuse for problems, because what it is it's kind of, to me it's a catch-all phrase that it doesn't allow for any subtlety. So the idea is like, if you say the problem is the bankers, it's like, yeah, it probably is, but like, can we isolate the problem and can we actually sort of think about it in a sort of strategic way? In the same way that like we had for instance, a huge attendance problem at school. And so when we turn around, if you turn around and say, well, it's, the fact is that, people were the way that we went about solving that was understanding the problem, which was people didn't have children at our school didn't have
an incentive.
Well, exactly. We had
Or the means.
No, the problem was that basically a lot of children would, if their parents had to go to work at a certain time, they wouldn't be able. They basically they couldn't be taken to school.
Yeah.
Parents work sort of shift works.
Yeah.
So what we had to do was really understand the problem and like engage, and then we opened a breakfast club, and that solved the problem. We had a huge spike in attendance.
Yeah.
I suppose what I'm trying to say is like
But that's you guys from within
Yeah.
solving a problem.
Yeah, I suppose
But the
that
difference
different.
is the bankers ain't trying to solve no problems.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So Joe Public, you can't say to the man with the boot on his neck, solve the problem.
I know.
You got to say to the man who's standing on there with his nice shiny leather Scarpo boots, maybe you want to take your boot on his neck for a while,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
You're right, James. Sorry, I'm definitely talking out of line. I'm
No,
thinking
you're
out
not
loud.
talking out loud.
I'm thinking out
It's
loud.
all healthy conversation.
No, I know.
And I'm just giving you an analogy is that I don't understand banking,
Yeah.
and it's been explained to me quite a few times, to be honest. I do not get it. But I just look at it is that anytime something's wrong,
Yeah.
it's a certain crowd of people.
Yeah.
Now, it's not all people are bad in that industry, but it's like they're not trying to fix it within themselves.
No.
It's like politicians. You talk about politicians,
Yeah.
and you say, well, they're always taking backhanders indirectly because they're getting paid to talk.
Yeah. No,
Yeah?
that's true.
Yeah.
And you're like, but they're not doing nothing about it.
Yeah.
Unless they get exposed in such a way like the Spencer scandal,
Yeah.
then they just don't care.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I think. But okay. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that anger, when it's directed at something specific, is more powerful than just anger generally.
Yeah, totally. When you channel that anger to try and do something
Yeah.
to solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the people with the power have to be willing to try and solve the problem,
Well,
regardless of
yeah.
what it is. Because, for instance, if you open up breakfast clubs, and the parents just weren't interested in bringing their children,
Yeah.
then nothing would have get solved.
No, I know. Well, of
Do you
course.
see what I mean?
Yeah. It's a two-way. It's a
It's a team effort.
team effort.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think it's, you know, I really believe in like sort of having, you know, more of a kind of a civic education system where we really understand like what systems are at play. I think that's a productive use of time and resources.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I appreciate that. You're absolutely right. Maybe the analogy of a school is not a very good one.
No, but it is a good one because it's honest. It's not about upsetting anyone or anything like that. It's just talk
Yeah,
what is on your mind, and we learn from each other.
100%.
As Abraham Lincoln said, we learn from everybody, even if it's not what to do, not what to do at times. You know, it's one of those things there. So you two seem like a happy couple. How did you handle the lockdown?
This is our third date.
Oh, it is your third date.
We met
Okay.
after lockdown.
Yeah, this is our post-lockdown.
Okay. Where did you meet on Tinder?
Hinge.
Hinge. Okay. Well, it seems like, to me, you got. He opened the door for you.
Yeah, it
And
was lovely.
that's the first time I've seen a man open the door, and I took a lot of theirs for. Excuse me.
I mean, that's my number one criteria, so.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Wig.
Brownie points and all of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. To be fair, I didn't do a very good job of opening a door. I sort of just flicked
he
the
almost
handle.
slapped it on my hand.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
I think
We'll
just-
move past.
Awkward British
It's
boy.
a third date. What do you expect?
Exactly. Yeah. It's been a long time, to be fair.
So where was the other 2 dates then? Where did you go?
Where did we go on our first date?
We went to a pub in Wapping.
Yeah, we went to a pub called the
Prospect
of
of
Whitby.
Wapping.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, down on the Thames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
was
was
gonna
pretty.
say.
And then we went to Chinatown afterwards.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
we went to Covent Garden.
Yeah, we went to Covent Garden. We really covered ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Went to gay bar.
Yeah, that was fun.
Okay.
It was a very
Okay.
rogue day, actually.
Yeah.
Not that we explain it.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it to go to the gay bar?
Mine. I really. So I lived in Birmingham, and basically Birmingham has the best gay village I've ever been to, and it's just like it's the best place to go for like clubbing, like if you're in a group or with like basically because you don't get any dickheads. Everyone's really respectful. It's fun. Everyone's there to have a good time. You don't get anyone who's sort of starting trouble. It was amazing. So I've always been like, if I see a gay bar, I always think to myself, probably worse places to go.
Do you go on your own?
No. Well, I mean, I wouldn't.
I love the way her neck just starts.
Yeah.
Oh my God, right.
Well, like,
Okay.
I put it this way, I wouldn't go. I probably wouldn't go
I mean, it's fine if you are.
No,
but,
I mean, I
like,
wouldn't
it's
go to
just not
I
for
wouldn't
me.
go to a bar alone.
Sorry, it's not for you. It's for me.
No, it's well, I'm living a secret life by night.
Okay. No, I know. I can say I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, no, they're nice places.
Yeah.
They're nice places.
I've never
I
been,
agree.
so I can't
like
comment.
going to them as well.
No, it's fine. I wouldn't go to a bar alone. You shouldn't drink on your own.
I agree.
Maybe the occasional,
You don't believe in drinking on your own?
I do believe in drinking on my own. I'd rather do it in the sort of,
At
in my-
home, in your room by yourself.
Yeah, if I'm drinking on my own, I feel like I want to be I want to really be on my own. I don't want to be propping up the bar.
Oh, I don't really want to drink.
But
on
then,
my own.
mind you, people who, I don't drink. I've never drank.
Oh yeah.
But people, from what I see, let's say on this typical movie, when you drink alone, you're not really drinking alone. You're kind of drinking with the bartender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not drinking. You're just telling him everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that does happen
But
sometimes.
that's like that kind of like hotel bar kind of drinking. I've never really been at like a place where that's kind of a thing, is it?
Yeah.
Maybe,
It's kind of American, it seems.
or maybe it's just after the first failed marriage, then you just realise.
Well,
that's the
Go and
place.
talk to the
Well,
bartender
let's-
instead of your wife.
Yeah.
Let's see how this day goes. I might
Yeah,
end up drinking
we're-
on my own.
marriage is quite.
Yeah.
Ooh.
One step
That's
at a
a scary
time.
word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, okay. Let's flip this. So, James, have you been married before? Simon, sorry.
No, I've never been married before.
Have you not? Okay.
No. But what I was going to say to you also is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
That's a big question.
That is a big question. I'd like to make at least one person's life better. I don't need to change the world, but I'd like to have a positive impact on someone's life.
That's a hard one. I mean, so there are people who I really look up to. For instance, like my dad, I really look up to him. I think he's like one of the most amazing, clever, able people. And I think, he's had a really interesting career. He's lived, in Asia. He's worked in Africa.
What's he done?
Well, he was in finance as well. But I think what's amazing about him is that no one, I don't really know many people have a bad word to say about him. And I think also there are a lot of people who have, treated him badly. And I find it really weird how he can just not hold a grudge. And I think being a kind of a positive force, to people around you, and not kind of being a mood hoover, negative about things. I actually think I really look up to that, because I have to admit, even when I'm trying my hardest, I don't necessarily feel, there are days where I do feel animosity toward people, as we all do. And I genuinely don't think Dad does, and so I really look up to that in him. I suppose because he's a bit older, he's 64, so he's kind of been around the block and kind of knows what's what.
I like what you're saying. This is food for thought.
Yeah.
What I've learned from my time on this planet, if you understand, to get on with people, you must understand them.
Yeah.
When you understand where they're coming from, then even if they do wrong, you kind of have pity on them.
Yeah.
Because you understand that in certain cases they may not know better.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be have animosity if you understand, if you at the same time having pity on somebody. Do you see what I mean?
I do.
So maybe your father, he's got to the point where he understands people, and he could look at it. If he knew what I knew, then that person wouldn't do that. Do you see what I mean?
No, I know.
And therefore I feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
It's just food for thought.
Just understanding that
I think there's
someone else had a bad day, that's why they're acting out, kind of thing.
No, I think there's a lot of power in that for sure. Because I do, I do spend a lot of time like with people who are sort of systematically angry. I would say like their career persona is built around being kind of pissed off with people.
Yeah, but that's a defense mechanism.
No, it's true, and it's like
you know what they say, the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest person.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%.
It's usually, think of it, it's that quiet person who's usually is a psycho.
It's me.
What?
I'm a
Yeah,
psycho.
well, I've been doing all the talking. So what does this mean?
Yeah. You're about to find out.
Jeeps. God. Anyway.
But it's been an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking.
Yeah, it's been lovely.
It's much appreciated. I will ask one last question. Normally the other question is the final one about how do you impact the world. How do you think Boris has done in handling this whole COVID situation?
Well, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Should we do it in one word?
I mean, I'm not sure what the words are going to say.
Yeah. It's not a family show, is it?
No, God.
I mean,
I don't think he's done a bad job.
Yeah.
No one saw it coming, and he's done as well as he could have. There are obviously certain situations which could have been handled better. For example, like the Dominic Cummings situation. But I don't think, on the whole, he's done a horrendous job.
Okay. Do you think Dominic Cummings should have gone?
Yes.
I just think they just come across as such amateurs. Like,
Sorry, are you a professional pandemicer?
no, but I just think everything they touch turns to shit. Like, I just wish that he had a bit more kind of empathy. He doesn't seem to.
But is empathy needed?
Yeah.
Because I like what he said at the start. I'll be honest with you. When he said many people are going to die, he's going to have to learn to live with it.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, that's real. I like that.
Yeah.
That's you need to get people in the right frame of mind, and then when things happen, they don't lose it. Do you understand? But I will say this to you two, is that if you was Prime Minister and only knowing what he knew when he knew it, what would you have done different?
Well, I absolutely 100%. You're right.
Yeah.
I think he was.
I don't think I would have done anything differently.
I would, from that point of view, I'd give him like a B-. Like he's done.
I love the way he's graded him.
He's done.
Yeah.
What,
I give him an A.
Yeah, but I think just stuff like they put children's futures in the hands of an algorithm. I just.
Is that Boris or is that the teaching department?
Well, I think it's just sort of, I don't know, maybe
Do you see what I mean?
I mean, obviously I appreciate Boris is not, Boris doesn't do everything, he's a figurehead. I don't know, I just find him, he's not a detail guy, and
Yeah.
I just think.
I think he doesn't come across as a detail guy, but you don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, because in fairness to, and I'm not a Boris fan, believe me, I'm not. He's cost me 420 quid a month on the congestion charge. Yeah, so I'm not a Boris fan. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair.
But what I will say is this: we're not all wrong all the time. We're not all right all the time. And in this case, is like I couldn't see how I would have handled the thing better if I was in his position.
Agreed.
Do you see what I mean? Now a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, but he didn't know that then." And the other thing is like this algorithm thing. That happens on his watch, but he's not the head of teaching. Do you see what I mean?
No, I know.
You've got to look at it.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at it a certain way, but to me,
Mate, I think that's incredibly fair-minded of you, and I definitely, perhaps I need to separate the man from the policy, and I just feel like they just come across as a bit amateurish, really.
but it's like the Trump situation. Many people criticise Trump, which I understand, but I also say I can see qualities in him, because I haven't met a prime minister or president who can take so much verbal abuse and still get on with what he wants to do.
He's
got
That's
thick
a
skin.
quality. Yeah, that's a quality. But other people don't see it. Also, I reckon if Hillary was in power, we'd have been a big international war with some country, because she's easily swayed. and stuff like that.
Well-
But other people get upset when I say that. But I'm saying, if you look
Well,
at
Trump-
go on.
Well, no, I mean, like, you know, when Trump sort of blew up that Iranian general, he got us pretty close. But
No, but remember, he did that in response to something that they had done. And remember,
But it's not
he said
you
they
can't just say, oh no, he's said this to me, oh I'm going to do this back. Like, you have to kind of
no. So what happened? Remember,
resolve it in other ways.
they killed some Americans in some base, and everybody expected him to bomb Iran. And he said, I'm not going to kill thousands and thousands of people because of what such and such. It doesn't make sense. He said, the world would have expected me to do that. Well, the media, you expect me to do the evil thing, but now what you got to say, and they all went quiet. But in the background, he's saying, don't worry, we'll get the general later on. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is what you, to me, taking out people's generals or people, I don't agree with that. I know the British policy, we don't do that. You capture people, you hold them accountable.
yeah, sure.
Public trial, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. America have a different policy, just taking people out, and I don't agree with that at all, because that's not justice.
No.
You know, where's the evidence to say, where's the court and the whole system? But it's, you know.
Well, I think, you know, it definitely goes to show the world is we shouldn't pretend the world is perfect and there's a right answer sitting there, and you know, I think that is certainly true. Like the last 3 years, maybe because I'm a bit, you know, kind of grown up a bit and kind of realised, like, had a chance to sort of really kind of engage with politics and stuff. But I think, yeah, you can't looking for like a right answer when there's usually shades of grey. I think you're gonna end up disappointed a lot of the time. But I suppose that's a fairly sort of what's the word? It's not a very profound thing to say. That there are shades of grey. Wow.
It's an optimistic view.
Yeah, man. Well, I really read that. Yeah. Thanks for that insight.
It's great. Glad we witnessed it.
Okay. Well, on that,
That domestic.
thank you.
Oh, fast fight.
Okay.
Oh god.
Well,
Can you drop me off here?
thanks for being some great guests, and I hope thanks, and I hope you had a happy journey.
It's been lovely, thank
Yeah,
you.
really enjoyed it.
We hope you liked that episode. Keeping in mind, we never know who we're going to interview. We post twice a day, 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. GMT. Have you ever considered the future economies to invest in? Why not listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories? Considering Africa has the fastest growing economies and population on Earth, and has done for many years, it holds 30% of the world's known natural resources. We publish twice a week, Tuesday with a guest investor, and Fridays talking about investment, politics and history, providing a clear understanding for any potential investor.